All right, all right, all right. What is up, everybody? Joining us. This is the Toilets to Titles podcast. I am your host, John Sheps, and we are on episode number 19. And it says down here, week number 1, but it's really week number 2. Justin just had such a good week that he wants to do it all over again. But see, I'm on it. I'm on it today. I know it has week number 1 with 45 exclamation points next to it. It's now week number 2. Man, you know what though? That sums it up. Week 1 was a whirlwind. We kind of creeped into it. We slowly like zombies after the way the last few months have been. And week 1 came and it was real football, man. We have a lot to talk about tonight. And speaking of all what we have to talk about tonight, who am I going to be talking with? You know who it is. It's my co-host. First is my man on my right. If you're watching from home, and if you're listening, then it doesn't matter where he is, but he's here with me. That's Justin at JustinFF_Justin. What's cooking?
Hey, I'm doing wonderful tonight. I am ready for this because it is our first waiver night of the season. Like, we experienced all these first. Like, everybody says that the first day of kickoff is like Christmas. And then you wake up Sunday morning, you check Twitter, and everybody says Sunday morning of football is like Christmas. And then Monday night football, it's like Christmas.
Right.
For me, this is no different. This is Tuesday night waiver night of week 1 after we finally get to see some football. We get to see how these guys react, how the offense is going to roll, how the defense is going to roll. And, I had to work all day, had tennis practice after. So, it's like I haven't had a chance to really look at it. I'm in 20 lineup setting leagues. So I am going to be up all really late after being up late Sunday night and being up late Monday night. Like, I don't know. This working stuff is really getting in my way of my fantasy football.
Well, it's making you a better man. You're a better man for it. But speaking of all the things that we compare to Christmas, the NFL draft, that's like my Christmas, man. I look forward to that. I'm starting to think I enjoy the offseason more than I like the in-season. As crazy as that can sound, I just love the optimism. I love the scouting, but that's off. It's in season. Why am I trying to bring everybody down? We need my guy, Nate, the Dirt Man, at Nate_Dirt19 to pick us back up. Nate, how are we doing tonight?
Doing very well. Had a stellar weekend. It felt good. Like I said, it was like Justin. It was like Christmas. I don't know. I was so happy all weekend, and it just kind of rolls into the week. Makes for a good week. So I'm ready to see what we can do this weekend, and hope to keep the good things going.
Man, things are going good. We're rolling. We're picking up followers on Twitter. On Twitter, you could find our show at Toilets to Titles. And I'm at Coach Sheps, if I didn't say that earlier. And we are accepting, tweet at us, start sits, all that. We were rolling last week. We probably answered over 200 questions. And if you're watching us on YouTube because you took that our Twitter link to this website, and you want to be able to listen to us, you can listen to us on Apple Podcasts, on Podbean, on Periscope, on Spotify. And if you're listening at home, you can come and watch us on YouTube. We're going to stream every Tuesday, 8:30 p.m. And while you're in here, if you're watching live, you can comment and answer any questions you have, trades, whatever, while we are recording. So before we get into the meat and potatoes of this thing, I do want to let everybody know we hit 50 followers for the Fantasy Cares promotion that we are doing. I believe we're at $40 total. So we've hit 200 followers since we started this thing probably over a month ago, maybe a month and a half ago. So every 50 followers, we're going to donate $10 to Fantasy Cares. And it's going to be a running total. And at the end of the season, boom, we're going to pick a charity, and we are going to donate that. So the next target is 439. We are at 425. So we're really climbing up there. And I'm setting kind of like a marker for myself. I feel like once we get to 500, I'm going to feel like we're legit. At in the 300s, it didn't feel like we had enough of a following to really be helping people. But once we get to 500, I'm going to be starting to feel myself a little bit. I'm going to think this thing's gaining some steam. It's no longer like a pebble. It's a bigger rock. You know what I mean? In the grand scheme of things. All right. Well, before we get into all the good stuff, waivers, start sits, all that, why don't we give a recap of week 1? And to start our recap of week 1, why don't we talk about Frankenstank? it's like a crop dust. It ain't going away anytime soon. That is true. So Frankenstank, if you've been listening to us, it's our listener league. If you haven't been listening to us, I suggest you go back and listen to the Frankenstank episode or watch it. Very awesome scoring. We tweaked everything. The format's different, and next year we're going to try to do multiple versions of this. So this year it's the inaugural one. We got 12 guys in it. We got like 6 friends of the show, and then 6 listeners, and we gave away a few free entries. And I'm saying, so my analysis, I'll let you guys speak about week one. One of the things I noticed week one that made this different than any other league I'm in is as I was watching the scores, I found myself getting more and more nervous about my opponent's players as they were ticking up receptions. So as they got to 7 or 8 receptions, because there's bonuses after you get to a certain amount of like a certain number, after you get like to 100 yards receiving, after you get to 10 receptions, after you get to 2 touchdowns, like the more you get, the bigger scores are. Like, I know that sounds generic, but no, like this, you get bonuses. Once you hit 10 receptions, the 11th reception's worth even more. Once you hit 2 touchdowns, the 3rd touchdown's worth even more. So I found that I was watching real closely, and I was a little more anxious so I was playing Justin. So as his weapons were going off and catching a lot of balls, I was holding on and hoping that they didn't hit those milestones. So that was my biggest takeaway from Frankenstank week one. Justin, what did you think about Frankenstank, and what made it, stand out to you?
I think it was what made it more interesting to me was actually today, watching the group chats whenever everybody's trying to decide who they're going to steal. And I don't think that Nate has stolen a player yet. Just to give everybody a little bit of an idea, in case you haven't been up to date, when you win a game, you get to steal another player, steal a player from your opponent. So like John beat me this weekend, and has decided to steal Michael Thomas from me. So he had to give me back his worst wide receiver in return. So I get Brandon Ayuk. So I upgraded from Michael Thomas all the way up to Brandon Ayuk. So what happens now is I'm waiting on Nate to decide who he's going to steal, because he's already 20-point favorites over me because I've lost my top wide receiver. Now he's going to get another big guy from who did you play Joshua this week?
Yeah, I just sent my request for my player, so you'll be seeing that shortly.
Oh, great. I'm going to wait, and I'm going to try to see that after we finish recording the show here. But unless you want to,
just
bring it up
over the air.
Henry's going to look pretty good on my team this week.
Oh, no.
Come on down.
So now I'm going to be like a 40-point underdog. So
I didn't realize my team was as good as it turned out to be. I looked at it the other day, and I was like, well, this team's actually looks decent. And we had a pretty good week.
Yeah. Well, that's the part that interests me, though, is like watching to see how these teams are going to build, and then hoping each week that I might actually get to play somebody that lost a week or two before, so that maybe I can gain a little traction and get back in this. But the waivers, free agency for guys like me are going to have to be huge. I'm going to have to hit every week just to stay competitive. So
small rosters. So they're like, I'm in leagues where waivers are so dry. There's going to be guys in this. There's going to be players available. I'm playing against the cat who won. So I think I'm playing Justin T, and he won. So now I took Michael Thomas. I was aware of the injury. I didn't know he'd be out, multiple weeks, but I'm loaded at wide receiver, and that was my plan. I loaded up a wide receiver. I went for 2 guys that are big play guys, and Tyreek Hill and Amari Cooper for the big play bonuses. And then I went with the guy who was a big reception, Chris Godwin. So I'm expecting he's going to get tons of receptions. I'll get bonuses there. Cooper and Hill are going to get long touchdowns. I'll get bonuses there. So I figured I'd grab Michael Thomas. And now I'm looking at it. If he's hurt, he'll be on my bench. If I lose this week, I don't have to worry about him getting taken. My strongest position is wide receiver. If I lose, someone's going to take a wide receiver from me. So regardless, I'm going to be in better shape, I think, with Michael Thomas than without. I was considering Mark Andrews, definitely, but I figured let me just add to my strength, like the Cowboys did when they drafted CeeDee Lamb. You know what I mean? They got Michael Gallup, and that worked out. Even though they lost all three of them, they went after Jalen Ramsey pretty hard, and they weren't afraid. So it's nice to have wide receivers who can do that. Nate, you have any thoughts on Frankenstank?
I'm just really looking forward to it more. Like I said, it's kind of fun and see how things square up. I actually left some points on the bench that I didn't expect to, but it really didn't matter.
Brag.
I'm not trying to. I mean, it was kind of, I guess, a backhanded brag, or whatever you want to call it. But
so modest.
Yeah, I didn't think that the guys that were on the bench would really
if you're not watching, he's blushing. Nate's blushing.
Yeah, but so like I said, my team's looking pretty good. I need to make sure that I don't lose every week before week 6 because my quarterbacks both have the week 6 bye. But I'm pretty sure I'm probably going to win again before then. So
I better adjust the schedule as the commissioner so that I Nate week 6. You got to remember what the schedule is, because if you see it change and all of a sudden I'm playing Nate week 6.
Yeah.
Hey, Steve chimed in. He said that he absolutely loved it. He also said, thanks, Nate, because I was going to try for Henry next week. So evidently he must be playing Joshua next week. He was going to try to steal him. So
Justin's got Lamar Jackson. So that's who I got my eye on. If I win, I would love to have Lamar Jackson in my roster. So I know though, I'm terrible at running back. That's why Justin gave me a B- in the Frankenstank recap episode. But I do have Michael Pirine, and I'm looking forward to him. He might not play this week, but I have him on a few rosters. All right, so this kind of ties into where we're going next. So we'll get off of Frankenstank. Let's move on to some news. I was speaking about, this isn't the top news, but I was speaking about Michael Pirine. Let's hit on Le'Veon Bell. He left the game with a hammy. Josh Adams came in. Michael Pirine was a little dinged up, so he didn't play last week. He might not play this week. But Justin, what are your thoughts on Le'Veon Bell going down?
I mean, honestly, I think I never have really been real big on Bell in that offense anyway. And I think what this is going to do is maybe potentially help teams get a little better, because they weren't going to get what they drafted Bell for anyway. And where you draft him at, you're going to feel obligated to play him. And I mean, we don't know how long yet that he's going to be on IR, or if he's going to come back, or if this is an excuse for them to move on from him. I don't know. Like, I really don't think that they wanted him on the team anyway with the coaching regime, with this coaching regime. So I don't know. I think it helps teams that actually had Bell, but like I said, I'm in 20 lineup setting leagues, and I have 0 shares of Bell. So
how many shares of Pirine do you have?
Thanks to you, I have 3. So I think 3, 2 or 3.
I'm in 9 leagues. I have 4. There was a lot of buzz. He looked good. His numbers were decent at the combine. He's quick. He's explosive. And then there was buzz coming out of camp when they had the scrimmage. I think he had like a 73-yard touchdown run. He had 2 touchdown runs in the scrimmage against the first team defense, even though it's the Jets. Like, that's the type of stuff that matters. So I went and grabbed him anywhere I could after that. So that's the guy I think you should be trying to own there if you can. Allen Robinson requested a trade. Nate, what are your thoughts on Allen Robinson? That's your division up north there. What do you think about him wanting out, Chicago?
I mean, it doesn't surprise me. I don't know. I don't understand what – I mean, it feels like the Vikings kind of last year with Steph Diggs, how, he wants out. Now they got, and Robinson wants out of Chicago. I just don't know if they don't, the guys don't like being there, I guess. And if I was the Bears, I would have been doing everything I could to, get an extension or get something done, because they are going to, he's amazing. And he always performs regardless of who his quarterback is. I saw a stat today. I wish I would have wrote it down. But how many balls he's caught that are deemed uncatchable just because of the poor quarterback play. Like I said, he's a stud, and it's going to, I don't mind seeing him lead the division. I'll tell you that much.
I think he's going to go to Philly. I said it 2 or 3 times already today. They already went that route when they got Alshon. They got Alshon Jeffrey from Chicago a few years back. They already have a relationship. They know how to get deals done. I think Philly goes back to the well, and they pry Allen Robinson away from Chicago, and he ends up on the opposite side of Jalen Reagor. Justin?
Any chance that the Saints try to go after him now that we found out about this other news we're about to talk about?
Well, all right. So now let's move on to Michael Thomas. He has a sprained ankle. So we'll talk on that. But now, as far as Allen Robinson going there, I think they'll wait at least a week. They got Traquan Smith. Drew Brees was talking him up this offseason. They got Jared Cook. They got Emmanuel Sanders. And honestly, I think Michael Thomas, he's a freak. I wouldn't be surprised if he misses 2 games. Now, if they win both games, I could see him missing 4 games because now they don't need him. So I think a lot depends on how they do when he's not there. Dallas went into a season 2 or 3 years ago, and I hate to keep bringing things back to Dallas, but without any wide receivers. Their plan was to let it ride. They had Allen Hurns. They had Terrence Williams, Cole Beasley. They weren't very good, but they had done decent the year before. I believe if they had won a few games, they would have kept it that way, but they lost early, and they looked terrible, and boom, they went out and traded a first for Amari Cooper. So like that, I think it'll depend on how they look without him. If they look bad, they lose games, and they lose because they can't move the ball, I wouldn't be surprised. Do I think it's going to happen? No. I think they're going to wait. They're going to see what Traquan looks like. I think he's the guy to own there, Emmanuel, and I think Jared Cook, I think his stock goes up there as well. That really touches on the Michael Thomas thing. You guys have anything else to add?
Nope.
I think it's an uptick for Kamara too. I think with them in the pass game and everything, and probably Taysom Hill because he's best guy on the team. So
Steve's asking, why does Robinson want out? Yes, he's got 1 more year on his deal, and he's not making top wide receiver money, and I guess the front office isn't working with him on his extension. So he wants an extension. He's not getting it, and he's frustrated.
And it's the Bears, and it's Trubisky. I would want out too.
Then we got a few other things. Blake Jarwin. I'll let you guys touch on this. Justin, I know you were huge on him going into this year, so that's disappointing. Tore his ACL, and he made 1 catch in that game. That was it was a beautiful all hands. He was going down. A defender was taking him down, and it was like he got his mitts on the ball, and it didn't even it was like a trap surrounded the ball. It was a very beautiful catch, so it was looking promising, and then he goes down. So what are your thoughts on Blake Jarwin tearing his ACL?
Yeah, like I said, I'm just heartbroken. I got so many shares of him as well, way too many. As a matter of fact, I'll take a look real quick. I have 10 shares out of 20 leagues of Blake Jarwin. That's how confident I was. So yeah, this really hurts.
Hope you got some go dirt because me and Nate have been talking him up. So hope you got some go dirt in those leagues.
Yeah, I already had go dirt, especially in a couple of dynasty where I already had them left over from last year. I never got rid of them. I targeted them a lot last year, but I don't know. So to me, I think that this is really going to help CeeDee Lamb excel a little bit more because that middle of the field was really the only spot that Blake Jarwin was going to help out in. Maybe obviously in the red zone as well, but they have enough red zone targets. I think more dump off passes, hopefully to Zeke. I have him in my main league, so that's the only league that really, really matters. And so hopefully it translates. But I'm really heartbroken because I hate it for the guy. You know what I mean? He was expected to step up and have a huge season.
Witten's gone. The opportunity's there, and injury comes and bites him. That's terrible. But the other weapons did look good. They didn't win. They didn't score a lot of points, but they looked good. They were running clean routes. They were getting open, and I think they will get it together. Now the Colts. This is your team, so I'm going from my team to your team. Marlon Mack, Achilles, that's devastating. Very hard to come back from. A select few come back from that. What is the outlook on Marlon Mack? And then what is the outlook on the Colts backfield?
Yeah, he's done. Marlon Mack is done. He was already in his final year anyway with the Colts, and it was a contract year that they most likely weren't going to have to be able to re-sign because they have Jonathan Taylor coming up. And to be honest with you, Rivers is playing exactly like I said he would play all offseason. Horrible quarterback play, and it really affected it. It lost us the game against a really bad Jaguars team. Unbelievable. We should have won that game by 2 touchdowns if you really watched the game. But everything I said Rivers was going to do is exactly what Rivers did. So now I'm kind of in the camp where I hate to see Marlon Mack go down because he's a solid dude. He's done a lot for the community here, and it was already bad enough that they had drafted his replacement, and we kind of saw him leaving. But now it's screw it. Let's leave Rivers in there, and let's see if we can't try to get a better quarterback in next year's draft.
Trevor Lawrence.
Yeah, I mean, it's
From
that bad.
Manning to Luck to Lawrence.
Yeah, and obviously you love it for Hines, you love it for Taylor because we saw Taylor coming. Now he's going to have all season to really build up and get into NFL form. But his stats show that he's already kind of in NFL form. I think he was in NFL form in Wisconsin. So I am excited. I am excited about the future. But
we got a few of these that I'm just going to kind of talk quickly. Duke Johnson sprained his ankle. Devontae Parker, he's got a hammy thing going on. So Preston Williams raises there. Justin Jackson's got a quad. With Joshua Kelly raises there. And then George Kittle, you just need to pay attention. He had a hyperextended knee. Didn't look pretty. And I've been saying with him, this guy plays the game so physical. Wasn't really his physical play that got him the injury, though. It was just being in the bad place at the bad time. So all of those things are injuries of note, but, not as big as the guys prior. All right, I want to move on to another segment here. We're going to do just some surprise performances, and we're going to keep to the Toilets to Titles theme. I'm going to say paper, as in cash. That means you hold them, or toilet paper. That means throw them away. So these are surprise performances. Nate, I'm going to go to you first. Joshua Kelly. Is this paper? Is this cash money, or is it toilet paper?
I'm tossing him. I just, I don't think it's sustainable.
I'm keeping him, man. That's this guy's cash money. The buzz was coming out of camp. It wasn't like he just jumped up and surprised everybody. There was buzz coming out of camp that he was the 1B to Eckler's 1A. So there was buzz. Now we got a decent performance. So I think, if it smells like dung and it looks like dung, might be some dung, man. So I think we got something there. You know what I mean? But all right. You're tossing it away. I'm holding on to it. Nyheim Hines, Justin, paper or toilet paper?
Oh, that's paper. That's money. That's money in the bank. It's money for the Colts. It's money for your fantasy team.
Okay, why? Why is it?
Because we have Phillip Rivers that can't throw the ball accurately 10 yards down the field. So throw it to the guy that's going to be able to break it and make some big plays. So I love it. I absolutely, especially PPR. He's going to be a PPR monster, guys.
Got you. All right. Nate, Myles Gaskin down there with the Dolphins. His performance, paper or toilet paper?
I don't even know. I mean, I watched a couple runs there Sunday. One of my good buddies is a Dolphins fan, so we had the Dolphins game on, and I don't even know what to think. I think last year I picked him up in a couple of leagues for no reason, just because same thing. Oh, maybe it's going to work, and it didn't. I find it hard to believe. It's hard to trust really anybody down there right now. I don't even know what the hell's going on with the Dolphins.
So if you're playing in the league with Nate, it's clear and evident he is not putting any waiver claims in this week.
No.
All of these, he's holding on to the guy.
When you draft as good as I do, you don't got to worry about the waiver wire.
I like it. There's the swag. We've been waiting for that.
What was that you said about something smelling like dung?
Let's get deep. I hope you got your boots on.
Oh, gee. All right. Now we got some crosstalk. They got a game this week, everybody. So that's why they're going to get – they're playing each other this week. So me and Justin, we kept it civil last week. We were only talking about each other behind each other's backs. But Nate and Justin now, they're going at it face-to-face. I respect that for the audience. All right, Russell Gage, Justin, in Atlanta. I think he had some he had a solid day. Paper or is this still the paper?
This is paper. I like it. So Mohamed Sanu was a longtime wide receiver for the Falcons, and they're not. I mean, they just kind of let him go, and when they did, you had splashes of seeing Gage last season. You could kind of see it coming, and then now on the field, like they've got so many weapons. It's really not much different than the three-headed monster we have in Dallas. So, I mean, I don't know that I would put Gage quite to that level, but an opportunity alone, it's like Joshua and he'll be glad that I brought this up. He always talks about how vacated targets don't automatically go to that position. So when Hooper left, that didn't necessarily mean in his mind that Hurst was going to get all those targets. I think we saw where a lot of those targets are going to go.
All right, so that's paper. I agree. I like it. All right, Nate, Peyton Barber out there with the Washington football team. Paper or toilet paper?
I'm in on Gage, by the way. I do like him.
Good. There we go. There's going to be a bidding war. That means there's going to be a bidding war.
I'm keeping Peyton Barber. I don't know why, but it seems like they like him. And, they don't really have much there. I know Antonio Gibson was the big thing before the start of the year, but you know what? I'm going to stick with Barber. He's been around long enough. He never really had much, but I guess he had a chance in Tampa Bay. But, I think I'm going to give him a shot.
I like it. All right, Justin, Logan Thomas, quarterback turned tight end, had a few receptions this week. Actually looked like a tight end, which was impressive to me. He didn't just look like a wide receiver quarterback trying to play tight end, which when they do that, sometimes it don't look pretty. So Logan Thomas, he fit it. Is that paper or toilet paper?
So you're going to find later on that he's actually one of my streamers. I think he's going to fall kind of in that in-between range where if you need a tight end, he's going to have good weeks. He's going to be a good option from time to time. I don't think he's going to be anything great. I don't think he's anybody that you want to spend a lot of fab on tonight. But at the same time, he's not exactly trash. I think he will have opportunity there.
All right, and Jordan Akins for the Texans. He looked decent as well Thursday night, so people might be forgetting about him because it's been some time since he played. But he looked the part. He looked great after catch. Nate, what is your thoughts on Jordan Akins? Paper or toilet paper?
I'm going paper. I think he looked pretty good. I think they're looking for guys that'll make plays down in Houston, and I think he's got a good shot at it.
I like that. They are looking for guys. They need somebody to step up, and he looked good with the ball in his hands. Him and Will Fuller clearly. All right, last one. Washington football team defense. Justin, paper or toilet paper?
I gotta hand it to you, Coach. You tried to tell us. Ahead of time that this defense was for real, and they're young but talented. And I mean, I get it's just 1 week, but for you to call that in the offseason, like a week before the season started, and then them come right out and play like that. I mean, it was pretty impressive. So, and I don't remember if that was you or Shepstradamus. So I'm going to guess it was Shepstradamus. But either way, we'll give you credit for it. And I am targeting Washington's defense in places where, I even have the Ravens defense. So if I've had 3 people go on IR this week, because we've had a lot of that this week, then sure, I might go ahead and put them on IR and pick up a second defense just to see if they are for real.
I appreciate you saying that. I definitely was drinking the Washington football team Kool-Aid. But now they had a monster week, and now they're young, and I think they're going to start feeling themselves. What separates the good defenses from the great defense is knowing that they're good. Like when the Ravens and the Steelers, when teams like that started to take that step, it's when they started to believe in themselves and they started to kind of walk the walk and not just talk, So I think now that they've done it, and this is another big test, they're going to go against Kyler this week. We're going to talk about it, but I definitely think they're worth a pickup and even this week. So I'm going to take this right into the games of the week. All right, our games of the week segment. The reason I'm going to take it right in there because my game of the week is the Washington football team at the Arizona Cardinals. Kyler Murray balled out. DeAndre Hopkins balled out. Larry Fitzgerald played well. I just think it's going to be great to see this Washington football team coming off of beating the Eagles, who, they got a good quarterback, but they don't really have a lot of weapons. They beat the hell out of them. They got a pretty banged up offensive line. But when a team's banged up, you are supposed to beat the hell out of them, and they did. That's not always the case. Sometimes teams play down to the opponent's level. They didn't. They showed up in a game they were not supposed to win. And I think, in Arizona, they won as well. So, I think it's going to be 2 teams that are coming off of wins early on in the season that weren't supposed to be coming off of wins. These are 2 teams that are supposed to be 0-1. They're both 1-0. So I think this is going to be a very telling game for who they really are. It could come out and this could be a slugfest. This might be the best game of the week. And I'm really looking forward to see how Kyler handles these guys, because these aren't just, you look at that defensive end from Ohio State. That's a big boy. That dude is a big boy. Kyler Murray's about half the size of him. So I think, he's going to have him chasing him down. And that's not going to be fun. And he's probably almost just as quick as Kyler Murray. So that'll be interesting to see. Nate, what do you have as your game of the week?
I have the Falcons at your Cowboys. I'm looking forward to see if the Cowboys can bounce back from a very poor, I'm going to say, coaching performance Sunday night. Aaron Donald made them look like little boys. Granted, he's kind of a monster. And I'm just looking to see what the Falcons do again. Them and the Seahawks put on a heck of a show. I didn't know that the Seahawks were going to be scoring like they did, and the Falcons, they kept up pretty well anyways. Like I said, I think they kind of got boat raced there at the beginning and didn't know what to do, and just started throwing the ball, and obviously they got the guys for it. So I'm looking forward to that one.
All right, Justin, what is your game of the week?
I got the Panthers at the Buccaneers because I kind of feel like we had high expectations for both of these teams. Like the offenses, like even with Teddy Bridgewater at quarterback, you still expected DJ Moore to do a little more. You expected Curtis Samuel to be involved. I mean, I know that Robbie Anderson had the big week, but that's kind of Robbie Anderson, like he's going to have big weeks. So it'll be interesting to see if he has more of a consistent role.
Toilet paper or paper, Robbie Anderson?
If he stays healthy, I think it might be paper. I think it might be. But and again, that's because bad quarterback play doesn't necessarily result in bad wide receiver play, especially for fantasy. But at the same time, we also don't know if Teddy Bridgewater is bad quarterback play either. Like we still need to give him more of a chance. And I think that's why I like this game. And the same thing with Tampa Bay. Brady was definitely has underperformed in week one compared to how he's ever performed. And is that age? Is that the new offense? Or, I really want to see, to me, this is like another game one. There's still more I want to see here to help us with our fantasy teams in the future. Plus it's a divisional game. And I think that we could potentially have like an actual good NFL game here to watch.
Yeah, I'm discouraged with the way Breeze and Brady looked. Definitely. And then early on, I said it on Twitter the other day, like normally guys like that start out hot and then fizzle out at that age. It's rarely that older guys start out cold and then get it together as the season goes on. Like that's when their bodies start breaking down. So they need to get it quick.
Not to mention the fact that without an off season, really without preseason games and stuff, it's those veterans that are the ones that are supposed to be ready,
right.
Not young guys.
All right, so this brings us to our betting segment, and I know Nate here, he's our betting guy. He uses FanDuel Sportsbook. That's where he gets his spreads from. So, Nate, why don't you give us a quick recap how we did this weekend, and then let us know some games that caught your eye, and then let us know what we should be betting on. Let us hear those locks.
Well, it was a fun weekend, I guess you could say. Pretty well broke even, so that's not too bad, I guess. But place I was wrong. Texans plus 9.5. Yeah, they got smoked by 14. And then the one I was really upset about was the Lions -3. God, that last touchdown, the Trubisky threw that was just a dagger to me. I just, ruined a bunch of parlays, and I'm not sure what happened. I don't even want to talk about it. And then the Chargers, that was another lock I had. They looked terrible. I thought they would look a little better than that. And it was a pitiful game to watch. And then the Cowboys -3, talked about it earlier. I had them as a lock as well. I expected quite a bit more. Like I said, I think there was some coaching issues that kind of made, that kind of ruined things for them. On the good side, though, I did say that I really liked the Cardinals +7, that they give the Niners all they could handle, and they did. And I think they're going to get that role for sure. We lose him or freeze up.
No, I'm
good. Oh, there you are. He froze up.
We're back.
Anyways, and then
you're on the Bills now.
Yeah, Bills -6.5. Knew they'd smash the Jets. Packers +2.5, obviously. And I bet the money line there, so that kind of helped out. Now moving on to this week, just some stuff that caught my eye. I like the Rams -1.5. I think they're going to keep their momentum rolling. The Eagles, I don't know what to expect after that. I know they're going to be, obviously fired up after getting beat by the Washington football team. A comeback like that, it's hard to swallow. They do have some big play guys. Goddard looks really, really good. I think there's some animosity, though, between him and Ertz now. He's the backup, and he has the big game, and why don't I? Kelsey gets paid, Kittle gets paid. That's what Ertz is thinking. I heard him and the owner, maybe GM, kind of got into it. But that's not important right now. Next one, I like Falcons +5 at Dallas. Sorry, Sheps. I think that the
I saw how it went when you bet for us, so I'd rather you.
yeah, maybe this will. Hey, I don't. That's probably good. That's probably a good thing. I don't know. Watching the Falcons score like they did against the Seahawks, the Seahawks defense is very, very good. They're not taking anything away from the Cowboys, but that was pretty impressive in my opinion, being able to put up points like that. Next one I like is the Vikings +3 at Indianapolis. Sorry, Justin, I feel bad going at both you guys like this. I don't know. I was very, very wrong about the Colts. I thought things would be looking up. Was excited to see them and was very wrong. They got beat by a team that's trying to lose. So it was a tough.
You're not the only one, man. Frank Wright is getting paid a lot of money to be wrong right now. So you're good.
Yeah, and so like I said, that was my new AFC team. I thought, well, maybe that's my fault. And I do like the money line too, the Vikings. Just I think they can beat them. Obviously. Last one I had was Seahawks -4 against the Patriots. I think that the Seahawks, like I said, I've been talking about it all week, how good they look. Chris Carson looked really good. Russell Wilson looked amazing. DK, Lockett, I think they're money in the bank right now. I think that NFC West is very good. Moving on to my locks of the week. Hopefully I do a little better than last week. I got the Bills -5.5. I know the Dolphins have a better defense than what they played last week, but I think that the Bills defense is too much for the Dolphins. Fitzpatrick looked kind of lost, which was very surprising to me. And I just think that I think Josh Allen and the Bills just keep rolling. I don't think 5.5's anything for them to cover. My next one, and I'm a little worried about it now, but it's Niners -7 at the Jets. The Jets are very bad. Losing Lev Bell, I don't even know if it really hurts him because he hasn't really done much there. Obviously does just because of veteran presence and, he's a heck of a football player. But having Kittle questionable, I'm not really even that worried about it. I know Garoppolo likes that Ross Dwelly, and they'll just run all over the Jets, I think. Like I said, I think the Niners pick it back up from last week, and they cover that one easily. My next one is Shep's game of the week, the Cardinals and the Washington football team. I think Kyler keeps it rolling. I know Chase Young is a monster, but Nick Bosa is pretty good, and Kyler didn't have any trouble with him. So I think that the Cardinals will, they'll handle the Redskins pretty easily. And my last one, my homer pick, of course, is the Packers.
You put a quarter in the jar.
Yep. I'll put dollars in the jar. I don't care if they keep playing like they did last week.
Nate's just throwing dollars out. Me and Justin are over here, we're hurting putting quarters in the jar. Nate's throwing dollars in the jar.
I don't know. Is he on mute?
Justin's on mute. Justin's muted.
I said, you know what Rodgers is dropping, right? He's dropping dimes and suck it signs, right?
Oh yeah,
that's true.
The Lions right now, I think 3 of their cornerbacks are questionable right now with hamstring injuries, and that's just easy money for Rodgers. And the Vikings defense is good. I know they had a couple guys out, but I don't think they'll have any issues with the Lions, especially after that collapse against the Bears.
So you guys, I'll be putting all this up on Fusion FFB like I did last week, so you'll be able to see all the betting lines and stuff like that on here. So there you have it. There's Nate's betting lines. And now we are going to move on to dudes and duds. Just a quick recap, week 1. My biggest hits, I had Raheem Mostert as a dude. He was RB6. I had Le'Veon Bell as a dud. He was running back 43. And I had Tyler Boyd as a dud. He was wide receiver 53. My biggest misses, I had Keenan Allen as a dude. He was wide receiver 51. And I had Adam Thielen as a dud. I even told Justin before the game that I sat him for Darius Slayton. But luckily, Slayton balled, and I won that game anyway. But man, that's I'm sure I could have found somebody to sit for Adam Thielen, But anyway, this week, my dudes, I'm going Ryan Tannehill versus Jacksonville. The Jaguars led up 363 yards to Rivers. I think Tanny's coming off of a 249-yard and 2-touchdown game versus Denver. So I think he's going to continue rolling versus Jacksonville. Like Nate said earlier, they're trying to lose football games. I think Tannehill probably puts up between 250, 260, another 2 touchdowns. solid day. For somebody like that, that's a solid day. I have Trubisky as a dude this week versus the New York Giants. He had 242 yards and 3 touchdowns on the road versus Detroit. He's going to be home against New York Giants, and New York Giants aren't any better than Detroit. So I think he continues his hot play. And if Allen Robinson plays, then I think, do you want to appease and please your wide receiver? Feed him. All right. So if Robinson plays, I can see him getting a touchdown or 2. So I think Trubisky keeps going. But I think after this week, it'll be midnight. The clock will strike midnight, and Trubisky will, become a pumpkin again. But I'm riding it while it's hot. Nick Chubb versus the Bengals. I shouldn't really have to go here, with my dudes. I feel like a guy who's drafted in the first round. I shouldn't really have to say he's a dude, but people are already questioning their first round selection. He had 3 less carries than Hunt, and he averaged 0.5 more yards per carry, a half a yard more per carry. The Bengals let up 144 yards in the ground last week. I think Nick Chubb is going to be involved early and often. The Browns didn't win last week. I'm not saying it's Kareem Hunt's fault. I'm not saying it's because they didn't give Nick Chubb more carries, but they're going to try to do things a little differently. I think Chubb's going to get a lot of touches, and I think he's going to help lead them, at least keep it close. So Nick Chubb's a dude. Another guy, Mark Ingram at Houston. He's another player people are panicking about. The Ravens ground game didn't really do much last week, and Ingram still had 3 more carries than Dobbins, all right? So the Texans let up 161 yards in the ground to the Chiefs. I think Mark Ingram is going to be fine. I think him and Dobbins will be fine. But I think, Dobbins had 2 touchdowns last week. I think the Ravens will try to get Mark Ingram into the end zone this week. So I expect him to have a decent amount of yards, and I expect him to get into the end zone at least once. For wide receiver, I have Anthony Miller versus the New York Giants. So I'm kind of teaming Trubisky up with Miller. Miller had 4 receptions, 76 yards, and 1 touchdown last week versus Detroit. I think he has another cake matchup this week. He should be licking his chops when he's watching film, seeing what Juju and Deontay did. And he can do what both those cats did, all right? And he knows he can. So he's going to go out there, and he's going to shred the middle of that Giants secondary. Another guy I have as a dude is the wide receiver Will Fuller versus Baltimore. Hey, Houston, you got any more of those garbage time points? that's what you should be asking, because they're going to be coming back. They're going to be getting their butts kicked. And then Will Fuller, last week he had 4 receptions for 72 yards in the fourth quarter. All right, as I said in the garbage time, one man's gold, one man's garbage segment, I think Baltimore is going to be beating up on Houston, and he's going to have a very similar stat line. So I'm starting Will Fuller. My final dude is Tyler Higbee versus the Eagles. He had a decent week 1, 3 receptions for 40 yards. The Eagles saw Logan Thomas have 4 receptions, 37 yards, and a touchdown. And I think Tyler Higbee is a better player than Logan Thomas. I also think the supporting cast is better than what Logan Thomas had around him. So I think the Eagles are going to have to focus on Bobby Trees and Cooper Kupp, and I think that's going to open things up for Tyler Higbee. So I expect him to be targeted early and often. All right? So I'm going to post those dudes up on Fusion FFB. I'll recap real quick. Ryan Tannehill, Mitchell Trubisky, Nick Chubb, Mark Ingram, Anthony Miller, Will Fuller, and Tyler Higbee. I got Allen is coming off a very strong performance Jets, but the Dolphins aren't the Jets. Miami is deep at corner and should be able to match up well with the Bills receivers. They'll be prepared for Allen on the ground after seeing Cam Newton week 1. I don't think Allen's going to run for the amount of yards he did last week, and I don't think he's going to be able to throw like he did last week. Like I said, I think Igbenogany, Byron Jones, and Xavier Howard are going to be able to stay with those wide receivers, and I think the Dolphins are going to shut him down. Kyler Murray versus the Washington football team. He played well versus a tough 49ers defense, and he's headed right into another tough matchup. I know you said Nick Bosa is very good. Javon Kinlaw, is solid. I think they still got Arik Armstead, but I just think that Washington front, I think it's better than that San Francisco front. They got Jonathan Allen out there too. They got Ryan Kerrigan. They got a bunch of boys. They got Deron Payne. They have a bunch of first-round talent. And I still haven't seen Javon Kinlaw do it in the pros yet. So all four of them across the board are dogs. Like, there's no Nick Bosa in a drop-off. There's Chase Young, but Jonathan Allen, Deron Payne, and Ryan Kerrigan, those guys are dudes as well. So I think they're going to get after Kyler Murray. They forced 2 interceptions versus Wentz, and they had 8 sacks. They're going to get after this kid, all right? They are definitely going to get after him. I'm sitting Joe Mixon at Cleveland. The Browns held Baltimore to 21 carries for 68 yards. That's 3.2 yards per carry. And Mixon already had a tough week last week versus LA Chargers. He only had 69 yards on 19 carries. That's 3.6 yards per carry, and he only had 1 reception. I'm not feeling too good about him. I think it's going to be another long week for Joe. I'm sitting Josh Jacobs versus New Orleans, which might seem crazy, but the Saints held Tampa's running backs to 22 carries for 71 yards. That's 3.2 yards per carry while focusing on stopping the pass. So they weren't even fully in there trying to stop the ground game, and they were able to do it. This week, they're not really going to have to worry about the Raiders' pass game. They're going to be able to fully pay attention to that ground game and take away Josh Jacobs. I think Josh Jacobs, I don't think he goes over 60 yards on the ground this week. He'll need a touchdown in order to be saved. All right, DK Metcalf versus New England. This is going to be a theme week in and week out. Any number 1 wide receiver who sees Stephon Gilmore probably not going to be having a good time out there. So that guy this week is DK Metcalf. I am sitting him. Mike Evans versus Carolina. Might feel like I'm just piling on right now, but I do not feel comfortable starting him anywhere until I see him healthy. He had a stat line of 1 reception for 2 yards in week 1. Chris Godwin, 7 targets. Scott Miller, 6 targets. O.J. Howard, 6 targets. They all saw more targets than Mike Evans did. He only had 4. He was the 4th option last week. I want to see him healthy before I feel comfortable putting him out there. And then finally, I'm sitting my guy Noah Fant, which might seem a little crazy. I've been talking about him all offseason, but I just think Pittsburgh, they're great on the defensive side of the football, and they just held Evan Ingram to 2 receptions for 9 yards. So I think Evan Ingram was a great tune-up for Noah Fant, and I think I'm going to sit him. I think they're going to lock him up. So to recap my duds, Josh Allen, Kyler Murray, Joe Mixon, Josh Jacobs, DK Metcalf, Mike Evans, and Noah Fant. Now on to Justin with the streamers.
All right, so I didn't do too bad on my streamers last week. I thought it was a lot worse than it really was, but I went back and looked at it, and I did get a few hits with Big Ben and Cam Newton at quarterback. They finished as the QB 6 and 8. And when I say that, it's typically I've looked through several of my leagues, and that's about where they finished, or that was where they finished in most leagues. Obviously, scoring is going to be different, but they were right around 6 and 8. I feel like I kind of hit on Scott, running back from Philadelphia, just because he got 7.4 in PPR, which isn't huge by any means, but it's kind of like what you would expect from a guy like that. So you're probably streaming him as your RB2 anyway, and you're in a tight spot because you had an injury or whatever. So I'll take that one. Lazard, 18 points. He was top 18 wide receiver in every format that I looked at. And Goddard and Fant were the tight end 2 and tight end 3. So that's a pretty bold statement by you to say that you might actually sit him this week. That'll be interesting. I can't wait to watch that now to see that matchup. But and then, of course, the Chargers defense did finish as a top 5. But I did kind of miss on some too. Bridgewater has a QB 16, and that's not horrible. But when I said that I would stream him, I was expecting something much bigger. So I really want to see what happens this week to see if I'm even going to go all in, like I said earlier, with the game of the week. That's why it's so interesting to me. Cohen at 6.7 is a big miss for me. I know with Scott being a 7.4, and I'm claiming that's a hit and then a miss for Cohen. That seems a little odd because they're practically the same PPR points, but I was expecting more from Cohen. Again, when I said I would stream him with the Montgomery tweaked injury, we knew he was playing and everything, but at the time that I said I would play him, we didn't know he was. But even with Montgomery playing in PPR, Cohen should really hopefully get you close to double digits every week. Tevin Coleman was a huge dud. He just fell on his face. I don't know what's going on with that. So I'm going to have to avoid that at all costs. And evidently Mostert is the guy, which I really thought that they would be more of a split. But
I mean, I thought it was still a split, but he deserved more. He outplayed them all. He outplayed them all hands down.
He did. He deserves it. And then Deshaun Jackson was a big dud for me because I expect him in week one. He always plays big in week one. And with that matchup, I really thought that he was going to come out. But yeah, it is what it is. So those are my hits and my misses from week one. Week two, streamers for week two. I'm kind of limited on the quarterback streamers in my opinion this week because most of the good quarterbacks are the ones that are playing the bad defenses against quarterbacks this week. So it's kind of hard to find those diamonds that aren't owned by a lot of people that have good matchups. I'm not going to go through like I did last week and talk about how like Phillip Rivers is owned in 20% of the leagues for ESPN and started in 5 and all that. Like, just know that if I'm bringing them up, then there's a pretty decent chance they might either be available or you may not be starting them, but you have them, or you might be able to get them for cheap and start them this week. So just keep that in mind. And as much as I dog Phillip Rivers, that's an NFL dog. In fantasy purposes, he is still going to put up some points because that offense is still really good. And I do believe that he's got an opportunity this week. Rodgers had a down season last season, and many felt that his best games were behind him, but he torched the Vikings defense for 364 yards and 4 touchdowns this week. And Minnesota does have kind of a weak secondary right now that may not be able to capitalize on all of those Rivers flaws. So I think he could have an opportunity to have a big week this week. And then I've got Jimmy G because he's playing the Jets, and the Jets are pitiful. Jimmy G was a streamer for me last week as well, and he'll likely be a streamer a lot this season. He finished as a mid QB2 last week, and he has Ayuk likely coming back this week. His wide receivers in general are getting healthier, and just like John said earlier, that Kittle injury, it is a bit of a concern, but he's also most likely going to play. I mean, he came back and played in that game, and you don't expect a guy like that to just be out. But even with him out, he should still have Jimmy G should still have a pretty big week one. And also the Jets are kind of middle of the road in rushing against the Bills. The rushing attack is kind of like what the Bills were supposed to be improved on this season. And they were kind of middle of the pack this week against the rush. So it's like if they can kind of stuff that run a little bit more and kind of hold back Mostert just a bit, then maybe Jimmy has to throw a little bit more too. And then of course the dump offs that Mostert could obviously break for 70 some yards. So that's helpful as well. My running back, I only have one running back because I know he's going to be a big ad this week, and that's Peyton Barber. But streaming running backs is kind of hard right now, especially early in the season. If you went the no RB route, that's kind of on you that you need to try to get a streaming running back this early. It's really difficult to find good streaming running backs. But in this particular situation, Barber did get the majority of the workload this week and against Philadelphia, but he wasn't nearly as efficient as Gibson, so I do think that we're going to see that changing of the guard really quick. But with Arizona being bad against the run this week against San Francisco, there is a good chance that Barber may have one more week, maybe 2, to hold off Gibson a little bit longer. But I think it's going to be sooner rather than later. But for this 1 week, if you really need a running back and you can get him off the waivers, then go for it. My wide receivers I'm a little bit more confident in, though. Paris Campbell this week. If I think Rivers can have a big week, then obviously I think that the wide receivers can too. Ty is likely already owned, so I can't really use him as a streamer, and Campbell will be the streamer. But honestly, I believe that Campbell has a real shot to outscore T.Y. Hilton this season. After watching that game this week, I know that sounds bold. I want to see it for another week or two, but the way that game played out and the way that I think it's going to play out all season with Rivers, I think there's a real opportunity, especially in PPR, that Campbell could outscore T.Y. Hilton. And maybe next week I might commit to that hot take or that bold prediction, but I'm really close to just calling it now. Let's see. Then I got Traquan Smith. So we kind of mentioned it a little bit earlier with Michael Thomas going down. And in the offseason, Breeze did mention in training camp that Traquan was in for a huge role. And obviously, I don't think this is what he had in mind, but he's barely owned in any leagues. He is going to be a hot waiver ad this week. You don't want to spend a whole lot of fab on him because you kind of feel like when Michael Thomas comes back, he's going to be back to nothing again. But if you're in desperate need for a wide receiver that could potentially have a big week, he's definitely worth a possible pickup. Tight ends, CJ Uzomah. Cleveland struggled last week against Andrews, but obviously, let's face it, everybody's going to struggle against Andrews and that whole tight end core there. But he had 4 catches on 5 targets for 45 yards and figures to be an important piece of the offense. They should have more red zone opportunities as well this week against the Browns, so I'm kind of bumping up Uzomah a little bit this week. Logan Thomas, we already mentioned earlier, just like Coach said, 4 for 37 yards and a touchdown, but 8 targets is really big, especially when you weren't even considered the starter to start the game. That was Jeremy Sprinkle, who had absolutely 0 targets. So maybe Sprinkle is getting the start because they need help run blocking maybe or pass blocking, and Logan Thomas is going to be that receiving guy. It's just like Coach said, he's converted quarterback. So how good can he be at blocking? But he will be heavily used by a struggling quarterback because, let's face it, Haskins still isn't necessarily considered what we would say NFL good at this point. So you might need that dump-off crutch. My defensive stream for this week is the Rams. Again, we talked about them earlier, but Philadelphia was inconsistent on offense, and Wentz turned the ball over 3 times and was held to 270 yards against Washington. Miles Sanders could be back this season, could be back this week, I should say. But even with that, the Rams did a decent job of holding back a much more potent offense than Dallas. And then
Aaron Donald is going to eat.
What's that?
Aaron Donald is going to demolish the Philadelphia offensive line.
Yeah, I think so too.
3 dudes from the Cowboys that are actually legit offensive linemen and made them look like nothing.
Yeah, and after seeing your bet up top whenever you were talking about your bets, I kind of thought you might like that too.
Yeah.
But and then some other streamers that I wanted to mention. I was going to talk about Trubisky a little bit more, but then I saw that you brought him up, John, for your studs. So I'm going to mention him as a streamer this week as well. But you got Burrow, Latavius Murray, and Kill Harry, who I'm going to talk about in a minute. Anthony Miller, I believe I'm talking about in a moment. Kendrick Bourne, Manny Sanders, BC Johnson, or Jefferson. We don't know which one just yet. I think we need another week to find out who that number 2 is going to really be. I think it could be either one of them. And then the Titans defense.
All right. So now I'm going to move on to DFS plays before we get into final segment, which is talking about turtleheads, players that are about to break out. So DFS, I killed it last week. I won a decent amount of money. I played in 5 contests and I placed in 3 of them. So this week I bumped up what I am investing in each contest, hoping to win more in these contests. So let's see how far I can take it. But I had a good week. This week for bargain plays, DraftKings.com is what I use. First one is Mitchell Trubisky versus the New York Giants. I had him as a dude. It's 5,500. All right, he was QB8 week 1, and he's priced as the 27th overall quarterback on DraftKings. I think that's a bargain. Ben had 229 yards and 3 touchdowns. I think we could expect a similar line from Mitch. And if he finishes top 15, that's still a bargain. He's priced as the 27th. Joshua Kelly, this might be a little deeper. If you need a guy, he's 4,700. I know Nate said, he's not necessarily buying that. And I can't guarantee you he's going to come out and he's going to put up solid numbers. All right. But he had 12 carries for 60 yards, 5 yards per carry and a touchdown. He only had 7 carries less than Eckler. And then David Johnson averaged 7 yards per carry versus Kansas City. And I think LA would be smart to keep the ball in their backs' hands, run the ball to try to keep Mahomes off the field. So I think you're going to see a lot of Eckler and a lot of Kelly. If he can get 50 yards on the ground and a touchdown at 4,700, if he's your flex or if he's your RB2 so that you can invest more money in your wide receivers or your tight end, that's decent. That's what you would hope for Joshua Kelly. So that's a deeper dive. Todd Gurley at 6,100 against Dallas. that's not as deep. It's still, kind of cheap given what some of these other guys are. But if you go back and look at some of Todd Gurley's last few games at Dallas, he haunts them. He runs all over them. And Malcolm Brown torched them. The Rams ran all over Dallas. And I think, Todd Gurley is going to have a good day. He had 14 PPR points last week. And this week, I think it's just a better matchup for him. Malcolm Brown had 17 carries for 79 yards and 2 touchdowns. He was the PPR running back 5. I think if Gurley sniffs that, he's worth it at 6,100. Now, wide receiver, I got Terry McLaurin at Arizona for 5,900. McLaurin had an okay day, 5 receptions for 61 yards. It's 11 points. I like the odds of him improving on that stat line. I think he's going to get a little more involved in week 2. You're paying a wide receiver 3 price for a possible wide receiver 1. If he finishes wide receiver 2, then, that it's worth it already. But I think you can guarantee he's not going to give you a dud. You're going to slot him in there, and he's going to give you decent production. Now, Keenan Allen, all right, versus Kansas City, 5,700. We saw Will Fuller torch the Chiefs in garbage time. I think Keenan Allen will do the same, so expect him to outplay his cost. And then finally, a tight end, Dallas Goedert versus the LA Rams at 5,000. He was tight end number 1 week 1, and he's priced as the 10th tight end in week 2. The way they are using him, he really should be considered a wide receiver. I mean, they have Ertz. Goddard should be considered a wide receiver. You're paying cheap wide receiver cost for a tight end, and he's going to give you wide receiver numbers in that position. I don't know why you wouldn't start him there. Philly literally has nobody to throw the ball to besides Goddard and Ertz. You have, Rager here, Jackson there. Like, they got gadget guys, until Rager gets more involved or Jackson gets more involved. I'm not really considering any of those guys threats. Goddard, Ertz, they're going to move the ball. They're going to eat $5,000. I'm slotting him in every DFS lineup I have this week until DraftKings realizes that he needs to be cost a lot more than that. So those are my DFS plays for the week. Again, I'll put those up on FusionFFB.com after we finish this episode. And now to the final segment. Justin, you're going to finish this thing off talking about some turtle heads.
Absolutely. Let's get to some turtle heads. So again, turtle heads are guys that you want to claim before they break out. So in week 1, I'm going to kind of say that for now, it was still a kind of a good call with Mitch Trubisky, 3 touchdown passes. And
great call. Listen, this is a great call.
Well, it was a great call for 1 week, but the turtle heads, you kind of like to think that they're going to be more long-term, maybe even dynasty-wise, like late in the season, next season. But with the turtle head, you never know when it's going to break out. So you want to be ready early.
I called him a dude this week, so we could say it's 2 weeks.
Right, exactly. And that's kind of why I'm putting it down as a good call, especially since I feel like he's got a pretty easy schedule coming up for the next few weeks, actually. So, and most of the early part of their schedule, they have some pretty
easy.
What's that?
Their schedule is so easy. It's not even funny.
Yeah, especially early on.
Yeah.
For now, I'm not going to say I had any bad calls yet because, again, you kind of think that turtle heads come out later on. But I will admit that as much as I boosted up Sternberger, his 0 catches on 1 target is kind of scary. But he does have the Lions this week, so I'm still a believer. We're still going to hold out hope. This week's turtle heads, I'm going to call and kill Harry to the table. And Bill Belichick has proven time and time again that he is the best of the best at what he does. As much as I hate to admit that, he is the man when it comes to coaching in the NFL. He knows what to do to exploit defenses, to take what they give you. And in week 1, they played Miami, who they do have a much improved secondary, and their run defense is still a bit exploitable. So Belichick took advantage of that. He went run heavy. They only threw the ball like 19 times. I think it was 19 times that Cam threw the ball. But he completed 15 passes, and 5 of those went to N'Keal Harry. N'Keal Harry had a 31.5% target share. Of the 19 balls that Cam threw, 6 of them were targeted to N'Keal Harry. Now, next week, or this week, actually, week 2, they play the Seahawks. And the Seahawks simply – I know Nate was talking about their great defense earlier, but they're not exactly the Legion of Boom like they were. But especially that secondary, if they do have a weak spot in my mind right now, it kind of is that secondary. And I feel like Belichick's going to find a way to be able to take advantage of that. Plus, that's kind of Belichick's thing. You run one game. The opposing team is going to plan on the run, and you throw the ball. You go over the top. And I feel like he has a competent quarterback with Cam. He can move the ball with his feet when he needs to, but he also has the ability to throw the ball. And I feel like you can get Inkill really cheap right now. Long term, this is potentially going to be one of those guys where you just pick up Inkill Harry either for free on waivers right now or for cheap from someone else, and you're able to use him 6 or 8 games this year in your flex spot. So the other one that I'm going to talk about is Anthony Miller. And again, we've talked about him a few times, but a lot of people don't realize because he's 26 years old that he is a third-year breakout candidate. Like, this is only his 3rd year in the league. So he's kind of a mature 3rd year right now. And that really does go a long way. He improved a lot in the offseason, and in camp we kept hearing this talk about Trubisky and Miller having a good rapport, and Trubisky improving himself, which I didn't want to believe until I saw it. And again, I still want to see more. That one game isn't going to be enough necessarily, but
1 quarter.
Yeah, exactly. Just enough to take away Nate's bets. But now and I put all this on here before we found out about the news about Allen Robinson today too. So if he wants out of town, that might open the door even more for Miller. But we got a lot of questions with this Allen Robinson thing. Like, is this a Stephon Diggs situation where he's jealous of the other wide receiver getting targets, or if he leaves Chicago, does Miller really have what it takes to be a legit wide receiver one against the other opponents' DB ones? And can Trubisky still stay efficient enough to get Miller the ball and continue to be relevant? Is Robinson really even going anywhere? Like, is it really a contract issue? Like, there's so many questions. And with all these questions and the fact that Miller still hasn't really officially broke out yet, it kind of just makes me think that you can get him for cheap. You can stash him and then just wait and see what the future might hold. And again, this may not be this year, but I think it will. I think he will have a great year this year. I think he could potentially be a consistent wide receiver 3. But even more importantly, maybe they draft a guy for the other side. And in Dynasty next year, you've got a legit wide receiver, solid wide receiver 2 with wide receiver 1 upside with Anthony Miller next year.
All right. So I think this thing is pretty jam-packed. We went over the hour mark again this week, but you know what? It was for you. It wasn't for us. It was for you. So, again, everything is going to be over at fusionffb.com. This will all be posted in article form so that you can read all this. I'm not expecting you to have a notepad writing this stuff down or be listening to it 5 times so that you can remember everything. I'm going to put it on there, and then Joshua is also going to post this YouTube video on there. You'll see all our Twitter handles. Everything will be all up on there. But just in case, if you're listening at home, and if you do not want to check that website out for any reason, which I don't know why, because it's a great website. Not only is it going to have our content, it's going to have tons of great content from Joshua. But you can find us all on the Twitter. I am at Coach Sheps. Nate is at Nate_Dirt19. Justin is at JustinFF_. And the show is at Toilets to Titles. Remember, every 50 followers, we are going to add $10 to our end-of-season donation to a charity of our choosing, and we will let you all know what we choose. You can listen to us on Apple Podcasts, Podbean, Periscope, Spotify, and the YouTube channel. So week 2, man, it's going to be Wednesday morning when this releases. That means it's time to make those waiver claims. That means football is back again tomorrow, and things are rolling. So now we're going to see, the first week it's always kind of iffy. You guys are getting injured. But by week 2, week 3, things are really rolling. So we're going to start getting into this thing. Justin, you have anything to say before we wrap this thing up?
Just love each other. Have a great night. Enjoy week 2.
Awesome. Nate?
Let's have another good week. Have some fun and keep staying positive and testing negative.
All right. I'm not as cool or as smooth as either of these 2 dudes, so I'll just let them take it out with that. All right, everybody. We will catch y'all later on.